Welcome back. Taking a look at the art world now. Theatre veterans Hopkins and Fiona Ramsay, as well as rising star Lihle Ngubo, are in the latest market theatre production, The Lesson.
Well, the play is set in a small university town where an eager 18-year-old student arrives at a professor's home for a lesson. Now, what starts off as perhaps a racial interaction becomes more sinister. The local version of the French play was informed by RhodesMustFall and other calls to decolonise education. Actors Hopkins and Lihle Ngubo join us now for this conversation. Thank you so much to the both of you for your time this morning and welcome. Graham, I think more than anything else, it's about how to take an adaptation that has been done numerous times on an international platform and bring it home to South Africa so that it relates with the audience. Let's talk a little bit about The Lesson.
That's right. Thanks very much for having us on the show. It's an interesting production because what Greg Homan, the director and adapter of the play, has done has taken a play which was emerged in the middle of the 20th century after the Second World War, really as a reaction to the Second World War, and he's adapted it into South Africa, contemporary South Africa, and in a post-colonial, post-apartheid South Africa, where education is very much in question at the moment. And it's a very funny play. I think we've got to actually make this point. That sounds very political and very serious, but it's a very funny play, and it's absurdist theatre. So it's a particular style of theatre. It's not really realistic. So what happens on stage is really symbolic of stuff that happens, of something much larger than that. But essentially, it is about an abuse of power, I suppose.
Sure.
Yeah.
How do you relate to it, Lihle? I mean, the beautiful thing about productions in this country is that they're always essentially inspired by something that is happening in our society. And I'm sure you guys have been listening to the news that we've been given. There's always something that is happening in our society. You can even write a play about ESCOM at this point. But how do you relate to this?
It's actually the timing for me and entering such a cast is actually really perfect because I also recently just finished in university and looking at just how we were taught and that system and what is happening and the exchange between lecturers and students, and also just the fight that the students just have just on campus, also just the ones that are traveling far from home, and just trying to have a community just within ourselves and how we support each other and whether or not we're coming together so we can all make the system work for everyone, or whether we're just still fighting and what is the problem, so it's very relatable to me right now. And I also just hope that I can just also somehow carry also the voices of other students as well, that are just like, we are just like the students, and what's going to happen to us from here on outwards. So
Perhaps let's get a little bit of a plot here in terms of what exactly is the play about. I mean, we're reading it a little bit, auto cue, but nothing relates on auto cue as it is when you actually have to hear from those who live it through theatre and through performance. But Graham, what is it all about? So
essentially, it happens in a in a professor's study, and this bright, young, eager, enthusiastic student comes into his space. And what starts off as kind of quite a cordial interaction becomes, as I say, an abuse of power. And he delivers all of this very complex, overcomplicated academic material and absolutely bamboozles her with it. And so in the end, it becomes an abuse of power. And as it's absurdist theatre, it goes beyond just an interaction on, just a teaching interaction. And it becomes symbolic of something much bigger than that.
Yeah, in that case, Nazi Germany, but in the beginning of it.
In the original production, right at the end, there was a swastika that happened, and Fiona Ramsay plays the maid. It was originally, but in this production, she could be a housekeeper, she could be a live-in partner, she could be a wife. In the original production, she would, right at the end, she would put a swastika on his arm. That symbol of power and the abuse of power. We don't do that in this production. It has a completely different take on the matter, but that is really what it's about. And it's crazy. It goes completely. The professor goes completely crazy, and it doesn't touch her, but it's an abuse using education, academia.
You're in the presence of theatre royalty, and I don't want to limit it only to South Africa, but I think the world knows of Hopkins and Fiona Ramsay on stage, and you are just coming in. You yourself, as we put in rightfully so in our introduction, that you are a rising star. I mean, a lot of people would feel out of place, out of their depth, feel like they're not good enough to be, in the company of Hopkins or Fiona Ramsay. But how have you taken, you know, their knowledge, their experience, their expertise, their stardom, and incorporated into your work so far?
I mean, in the beginning, stepping into the room, it really was intimidating. Yeah. I did feel a little bit overwhelmed. But as soon as we got in and the introductions took place, and then we just really just started sitting down and talking, I really felt seen and I felt held. And I think they could also gauge that she does seem a bit nervous. So just their energy towards me and them thoroughly welcoming me and being like, we're going to work through it together. And even just how the process has been, we've laughed a lot. They've really helped me a lot with other things. I think also what I've been struggling with is just landing the comedy, and Graham and Fiona do it so well. And there's just these little things, these little nuances about theatre that I'm also still learning, because that's the thing. I'll always just constantly be in a space of learning. So I'm very excited that I've had the opportunity to work with them, and I'll definitely take what they've given me, what they've offered, into other platforms as well.
I think we should say that, you know, the learning happens both ways. I mean, as soon as we become so full of ourselves that we think we can't learn from a younger generation, then we shouldn't be doing the job anymore, I believe. And that doesn't only apply to acting.
That is very true, you know, and more than anything else, speaking about the younger generation, the likes of, for example, you just finished university when you went into this production, right?
Yeah.
I look at how many young people in her space, there's opportunity for them to have an appreciation of theatre. Because I do believe that somewhere, somehow, we need to start making theatre available for more South Africans to actually appreciate the craft, appreciate you having to go to university to study this craft, and also get the experience of it. This is a creative industry that perhaps needs so much attention because it's also providing an educational platform. But it also needs people that are going to filter down so that, Graham, you're not replaced by no one. You know what I'm saying? That there's almost a succession and a follow-through that of teaching, of theatre, of production. And from this side of things, and you'll be able to attest to this, I almost worry about where are we seeing a lot more young people that are coming into this mode, because it's something that can open up so many doors internationally, for that matter. But it's something that needs intentionality behind it.
No, I absolutely agree, and I think that, you know, one of the extraordinary things about this profession is that we work. I mean, I'm old enough to be Lihle's grandfather, probably, you know, her father, possibly even her grandfather. But we work on an equal basis, and that's the wonderful thing about it. We're on that stage, we're equals. We're telling a story together, and it doesn't matter the size of the role. Each role is absolutely vital. I couldn't do what I'm doing without Lihle, and she without me. So we work as equals, and that's a wonderful thing. I've always enjoyed that about this particular profession.
I was actually telling Faith, I attended my very first production. I watched my very first theatre production. You know, I'm over 30, and for the very first time last night, I actually went into the theatre to go watch a production. And I think this also speaks to the point of, is theatre, do South Africans know about the theatre? Do South Africans appreciate the theatre and what it has to offer, at least South African theatre and South African productions? As somebody that's coming in, somebody that is younger, where do you see theatre in South Africa at the moment? Do you feel that it's not getting the love it deserves?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's not given the love it deserves. I think what has impacted it quite a bit is COVID, because when COVID hit, then we were doing a lot of our theatre shows via Zoom or getting links to then try and go on, which kind of became a bit difficult, and that's not really what the core theatre is mainly about. So I think it even affected us, you know, even just with the spiritual aspect of what theatre is for us artists. But I think it also just requires the community and the artist space to decide that, okay, now that we are trying to go beyond the point that COVID has happened, but also then how do we then use what we did during COVID to sustain theatre, and then how do we then expand that? Because us being on those type of platforms kind of expanded a little bit, because not many people actually physically go out, but many people are on their phones and are on their laptops. So I think now we're in a space of trying to bring the two worlds together and then expand it more somehow.
How are we going to do that? I actually want to labor on what you're saying, because this is the time of TikTok. This is the time of Instagram. This is the time of Insta stories, right? Social media, though, has provided a significant distraction for young people, but it also provides a significant opportunity, right? So depending on how you utilize it, how then do we start opening it up? So as I'm saying, it would be wonderful to see 23-year-old, 24-year-olds fill up theatre productions and pay to see the experience of this craft, right? To watch it, and maybe because I love the theatre, but to watch talent face to face is completely different than watching it on television. Not to say whichever one is the less, but it's just, there's a complete different experience with it. How do we fill it up? With a bunch of 23-year-olds, they can be on TikTok, they can actually spread the message of theatre, because I truly believe South Africans are talented. Talented individuals. I just think we need more in terms of exposure. How can we become more deliberate about how we expose?
I think even opportunities like this right now, being on this platform and speaking to you guys about it, we just need those doors. Just to be like, we just want to speak about this. If anything, we'll do a really quick pop-up. We'll do a 5-second skit of just a little bit about what the play's about, and we just ask you to just share that. And then once the ball starts rolling there, then somebody else sees it and somebody else captures it. Then there's this thing, and there's this voice that's now happening on social media, and then before we know it, people are at the theatre, people are at the door, because we can't, I feel like, print and stuff can only tell so much and can only go to certain people, so it's definitely platforms like this and just other people allowing artists to just step into those doors and be like, we just have this, just show them this, and that's all we ask for. Just show them 5 seconds, 10 seconds, just like the TikTok stuff.
Graham, you've done this, you've done this for so long that it's gone through different stages of South Africa as a country. It's gone through different generations. You've seen different kinds of faces that have been in attendance watching some of your work. Just speak to what theatre can do for South Africa in 2022 going forward. We've gone through so much. We are still going through so much. We are still dealing with load shedding 14 years in. We are now dealing with high cost of living. We are called the rape capital of the world. GBV is at an all-time high in this country. And things like art can be an escape, I'd like to believe, for people that are just experiencing so much in South Africa. Theatre in 2022, what is its role in society?
So theatre is as old as humanity because it's about storytelling. Many, many, many eons ago, we sat around the fire telling stories. And live theatre today is essentially the same thing. It's essentially the same thing. It connects us to the past. And it has an immediacy and a human connection that you'll never get on a small screen or a big screen. That live element is what makes it dangerous, what makes it exciting, what makes it absolutely immediate. Things can go wrong. Things will go wrong. They will go wrong, and we'll find our way out of them. But that's what makes it exciting to watch. And I believe that storytelling is how we get through the mess and the morass. And particularly the whole world today needs storytelling more than it's ever needed before.
Yeah, and more than needing storytelling, it needs us to perhaps start becoming more brave in terms of some of these issues that we're tackling, because it's not going to go away. And maybe this is the way that we are able to do so. Talk to us a little bit about the process, Lihle, of being able to get into character. I always get fascinated by, artists who have to take on this role of getting into character, because you're literally immersing yourself in somebody else. And then at the end of the day, you have to get out of it. And I never understood that. Maybe that's why school is there, right? But talk a little bit about just the prep and the preparation and what is actually required for you to embody what you're going to be performing.
Oh, well, it really does require me to be fully present and allow myself to offer myself to what is at play without trying to hide some other aspect of it, because I think what did make me nervous in the beginning of this was understanding that, okay, there's gender politics involved here, there's racial politics involved here, there's also the abuse of power and the abuse of space, and me having to decide that, okay, this is a story about the student, and it's a young black female in contemporary South Africa, right? Lihle, how far are you from this individual? Right? What story does she have? What is she coming with, from home? What did I come with? Where do me and this character meet? What is our conversation together? Also, what aspects of me are not needed for this individual, but at the same time, which strings is she pulling? Where does she want to go? What is her intention? You know, what are her hurts? What are her worries? What are her fears in this space? And I think mentally, once you start to put the work in there, and you also have the script guiding you as well, and then you then understand the relationships or the lack of thereof that she has with the other characters, and then on top of that, then it's obviously then getting into the costume and then having her socks on, having her shoes on, having her hair tied in a certain way, you know, and then you then start to find the gestures, you know, is she always a calm person, or is she always agitated? And then I think just when you build on those blocks, then you start to color and you start to fill it in and you start to fill it in. And I honestly think I will never finish coloring her until maybe even the last day of performance. Because I think because it's just live theater, something new comes up every time. You know, the way we deliver a line will not always be the same every night. And our responses between me and Graham and me and Fiona within the characters on stage will not be the same every night. And I think the coloring the characters and coloring the play will just always continue like that.
Lihle, why theatre? Why not accounting? Why not medicine? Why not law? Why not sports or sports science or something? You know what? I always want to find out why would someone decide on the arts? And that's not to say that the art is not something that you can make a great living out of. I mean, with Graham Hopkins and Fiona Ramsay, they've been doing this for so long. But when you decided finally that this is where I'm going with my life, why did you make that decision?
It gave me a confidence that I didn't entirely understand where it was coming from, but it just felt right. And I think it was because my mom started me out at the Lihle Ngubo Drama Academy at a very young age, but she did it because she didn't want a child that was going to not be able to speak for themselves, you know, in this world. She was like, I need to make sure that she's outspoken. I need to make sure that she can stand up for herself. And then she put me in there. But it was just to gain just confidence. So we moved from confidence into performing, and it just made sense.
I like it when things find you. Graham, very quickly, as we wrap up, where can we catch the production, times, and the like?
So Market Theatre, you can telephone the Market Theatre or the Market Theatre website, which is markettheatre.co.za, and we're on at 7 o'clock every evening, Monday to at least Tuesday to Saturday, and then we have a matinee on a Sunday.
Oh, that's amazing. I now know where probably my second play is going to be.
Yes.
I'm a play guy now. I go to productions now. So thank you very much, guys. We really do appreciate it, and all the best with the rest of it, because we do know it's running until the 30th of October. So thank you very much for joining us, and all the best with the rest of it. And you can definitely expect to see me somewhere in the theatre, in the audience, somewhere, someday between now and the 30th of October. But really do appreciate your guys' time. Of course, that is Graham Hopkins and Lihle Ngubo. They are actors, of course, that are involved in this particular Eugene Ionesco's The Lesson. That, of course, is the production that is happening at the Market Theatre all the way until the 30th of October.